Hey everybody, it's Mr. Schwartz here with what I believe is my last video to you of the semester. So for everyone graduating, if I don't have a chance to see you again, I want to say congratulations. It's a major accomplishment. I hope you're proud of yourselves, and best of luck to you in whatever you have coming next. Now I want to get into the content for today because we got a lot to get through and not a whole lot of time to get through it. What we're going to be looking at today for our final lesson is the Iranian hostage crisis and President Jimmy Carter's response to it. For those who might not be entirely familiar, this is the country of Iran. It is in the Middle East, located right between Iraq and Afghanistan. It's a large country and used to be the Persian Empire, which extended all the way from Europe to Asia, or rather to China. The context for the Iranian Revolution has a lot to do with this man here. This is the Shah, also called the last Shah, and because he was the last Shah, a lot of times just known as the Shah. Shah means king, so he was the ruler of Iran. But he was really unpopular among the people. And actually, in 1950, he was voted out. But he was reinstated to rule the people that didn't want him, thanks to a coup that was led by the United States in 1953. So this is a leader who was propped up by the American government in opposition to the wishes of the people of the country. Sentiment against the Shah would build for years since he was reinstated to power. Interestingly, the Shah was criticized from both the political left and what might be considered the political or the religious right. The leftists, the Marxists, well, they were anti-Western, anti-capitalist communists. So they opposed the Shah because he was being supported by the U.S. because he was also sort of a modern capitalist type. He was also opposed from the other side by the religious extremists, the Islamic fundamentalists, who opposed him because of his connections to what they considered to be an anti-Islamic, imperialist, Western United States regime. Demonstrations against him really started taking off in 1977, and then things kind of exploded in 1978 with the burning of the Cinema Rex. Cinema Rex was a movie theater in a town called Abadan. Not Tehran, the capital. This is far away, but still a populated city. A movie theater was locked from the outside and intentionally set on fire, and more than 400 people died, according to reports. This is the aftermath, as you can see. So you can see just the number of chairs that were in there and the damage that was done. The government of the Shah blamed the Islamic fundamentalists, but most people blamed the Shah's government and his secret police. So there's a lot of conspiracies about this being a false flag perpetrated by the government, but blamed on fundamentalists, and the people really weren't buying it. And this event is seen by many people as the final straw that kicked off the Islamic Revolution and the overthrow of the Shah. The Shah, due to escalating demonstrations and strikes and protests, left the country in exile in 1979. Now remember, this opposition to the Shah was coming from the communist left and the religious right at the same time. But suddenly, the religious right kind of took over the revolution, and the Iranian Revolution became the Islamic Revolution. And the country decided, through a national referendum, that they would become an Islamic republic and would no longer be a Western-based monarchy, but would be a theocracy whose government was rooted fundamentally in the laws of the Islamic religion. The replacement for the Shah was this man, the Ayatollah Khomeini. He was a political and religious figure in Iran, very popular, very influential internationally, who was actually exiled from the country for 15 years because of his former opposition to the Shah. When the Shah left the country, he was invited back to Iran by his supporters and was welcomed, reportedly, by a crowd of 5 million people. just to tell you how popular this guy was. The attack on the U.S. Embassy happened shortly after the Ayatollah returned and assumed control of the government and assumed power. The attack happened on November 4th, 1979. A group of Iranian college students who were supporters of the Ayatollah. Look, here's someone carrying a banner with the Ayatollah's face on it, and here's a group of student demonstrators climbing the fence of the U.S. Embassy. They stormed the embassy. They took 52 Americans hostage. In Iran, the act was seen as an act against the U.S., an act against its influence in Iran, presumably wanting the U.S. to be out of Iran, but also they demanded that the Shah be returned to the country to stand trial for the crimes that he committed against the Iranian people during his regime. He was being kept in the U.S., not held. He was there. The U.S. allowed the Shah to go to the U.S. when he left Iran, not only because they had diplomatic relationships, but also because he was seeking medical treatment. So the hostage takers, the Iranian revolutionaries, demanded that the Shah be brought back to Iran so that he could stand trial for the supposed crimes against humanity or the crimes against his people. What was supposed to be a brief situation dragged on for over a year. Well over a year. 444 days. It was probably the single thing that President Carter's administration was known for, and unfortunately, the biggest debacle or fiasco or failure of his presidency. First of all, he failed to negotiate a release of the hostages. After a time, he decided to order a rescue mission, which was essentially a disaster. It failed. An Iranian civilian was killed, and then one of the helicopters that was carrying American servicemen who were attempting to carry out this mission crashed, and 8 American servicemen died. This was widely seen as one of the major factors in his landslide loss to Ronald Reagan in 1980. And perhaps not coincidentally, the hostage crisis came to an end on the day of Ronald Reagan's inaugural address. Now, some people say that there were, conspiracies and deals being made between Reagan and his supporters and the Iranian hostage takers to ensure that Ronald Reagan won the election, basically telling the hostage takers, let's make Ronald Reagan look like the hero. Let's make it a demand that they won't be released until Reagan is elected in order to influence the country who was concerned about the hostages, maybe make them more likely to vote for Ronald Reagan. There's some stuff there that perhaps is worth looking into. But for now, just know that Jimmy Carter really dropped the ball on this and definitely contributed to him not being reelected. So, it's a very brief synopsis of the Iranian hostage crisis. Your task, which is also your final assignment, so this is your final for the semester, and the last thing that you're going to have to do, is to create a Time magazine cover and write a 1-page article about the Iranian hostage crisis. This might require that you do some independent research on your own. I will be emailing you a template that you can use for the Time magazine cover. By all means, use the internet to look up what Time magazine covers have looked like, even for references as to what the Time magazine covers depicting this incident looked like. Don't just copy them, because that's plagiarism, but you can use them for influence or inspiration. For your 1-page article, I want you to address who was involved, why it occurred, tell me how it began, how it ended, and what occurred in the aftermath. So that's something I didn't really touch on in this presentation, is the aftermath. So make sure you include something about what happened after the crisis ended. If you do additional research, make sure to cite any sources. You don't necessarily need to do a reference page or a bibliography if, like a journalist, you cite the source in the article. So if you're going to cite a fact, say, according to blah, blah, blah. This event occurred at this time. So you can embed your sources right in the article yourself. You don't need to send these to me. Send them to Mr. D through Google Classroom. Here's your due date, Friday, June 5th by 9 a.m. I have to assume that late work will not be accepted. So don't log onto your computer Friday at 9 a.m., finish typing your paper, and then submit it at 9:10, because by then the gradebook might be closed. Okay, these are due Friday, 9 a.m. We will have an opportunity to discuss this further on Thursday. So if you're watching this video for the first time on Tuesday, don't sweat. As always, if you have any questions or issues, you can email me at mrschwartz42@gmail.com. Right there is my email. But this is it. This is all I want you to do. Do something creative and artistic and visual for a Time magazine cover depicting the hostage crisis, and a one-page article addressing these questions about the hostage crisis. And that's all. And should any of you desire extra credit, maybe you missed some assignments throughout the year, maybe you want to do a little something to boost your grade at the end, watch the movie Argo, which won the Best Picture Oscar a few years ago. I don't exactly remember when, 2016 maybe? Which is about the Iranian hostage crisis. It's not about the failed rescue attempt. It's about a secondary rescue mission to save some people who were kind of trapped. They were hiding in the embassy. The hostage takers didn't know they were there, so they were trying to avoid being captured by the hostages, and they were trapped for a while. So you can watch the movie Argo, and you can write a one-page response addressing these questions. Argo is about a fake movie that was being made. That was the cover that they used to get into Iran to try to rescue these hostages. So who is the primary audience for the fake movie? Why did the CIA go into such depths? So think about that. And if you want this extra credit, watch the film, write a one-page response, submit that to Mr. Demo through Google Classroom, as well as submit your final assignment, Time Magazine cover and article. Questions, concerns, comments, addressed to me, mrschwartz42@gmail.com. And in closing, once more, I just want to say how much I enjoyed working with all of you this semester. Certainly my student teaching experience did not go the way that I planned. And I can only imagine the disappointment that a lot of you must feel about the way that your final semester of high school ended. But life goes on, so will you. You did it, you made it. Congratulations. I hope you're proud of yourselves. And I hope all of you take care and enjoy your summer. And maybe for those of you sticking around, maybe I'll see you soon. All right, take care.